Well, good evening and happy Monday. We're enjoying ours, and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. The battle over health care is far from over, but already a big chunk of the left has had a full psychotic break. Sounds like overstatement, but it's real, as you'll see, at the prospect of Obamacare's repeal. Just yesterday, Andrea Mitchell of NBC went on Meet the Press and suggested the American Health Care Act was somehow a scheme by white men to destroy everybody else. Watch.
Well, let's talk about women. I mean, when we looked at the Rose Garden and the celebration of this on Thursday, they were all, mostly all men and white men at that.
Who cares? What does it matter? I see plenty of women there, by the way, but what does their skin color have to do anything? Geez, if those were all black men and somebody on the Republican side, and this was a Democratic gathering, and the Republicans said, oh, geez, they're all conspicuously men and black men at that. That's very suspicious, those privileged black men there. I think that the left and everyone else would freak out. But it's open season on white men for some reason.
No diversity there.
Okay, so since when does the left care about diversity? Oh, they care about something that is totally, completely, 100% inconsequential and a red herring, which is racial diversity, which means zero. So now we're getting back into the retarded realm of identity politics. Okay.
Ooh, white man, worst kind. And then there was Kurt Eichenwald. Remember him? How can we forget he dropped the screen on Twitter? Quote, as one with a pre-existing condition, I hope every GOPer who voted for TrumpCare sees a family member get a long-term condition, lose insurance, and die.
So, this fellow believes that pre-existing conditions should be allowed in health insurance. So, essentially, it's just a free piggy bank where everybody who gets sick can just sign up and take money. Now, that's very much akin to your house burning down, and then you decide to get fire insurance after the fact. Not really how business works, Kurt.
When asked why he wanted people to die for his political beliefs, Eichenwald added this charmingly, because I want them to be tortured.
So, Kurt Eichenwald is essentially a psychopath. Let's continue.
Keep in mind, Kurt Eichenwald works at MSNBC now. Even Eichenwald's venom, though, was exceeded by that of singer and actress Bette Midler. She tweeted this, quote, so the homegrown Assads in the Freedom Caucus want employers to not have to offer health care to employees, like gassing their own people.
Okay, so Trump's new health care bill in no way says, oh, now you don't have to offer health insurance to employees. So that's a lie. Like gassing their own people. So gassing people, she's making some kind of vague reference to what, the Holocaust or something, or gassing Jews, or some kind of a chemical weapons attack in the Middle East. What exactly is she saying? Bette Midler seems unhinged to me. But no surprise, she's a leftist.
Exclamation point. Just like that. And finally, there's Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan, who, like Mitchell, was very hung up on the whiteness of Republican lawmakers trying to change health care. Here she is.
I just sort of watched in shock the picture in the Rose Garden after what happened on the House. I really wanted to cry. When I say it's not a game, they are treating it like a game. But for the people that I represent, for people across the country, it's not a game. And that's the point that I was trying to make. And then when you hear, you see that picture in the Rose Garden, you realize who it is that is celebrating this, and then hear that it's the 13 white boys, sorry to say it that way, that are going to be doing this in the Senate. I get very concerned.
So she's concerned about white people because white people are in some way bad, evil, there's something really bad about white people. Okay, that's not vague.
The white boys. Well, this is clearly no longer a debate over policy about health care or anything else. It's something else entirely different. But what exactly is it? Don Calloway is a Democratic strategist and former Missouri State Representative. He joins us tonight to perhaps explain. Don, great to have you tonight.
Thank you for having me.
What is it about these people that on the left? By the way, this guy, doesn't he look like Don Lemon? I mean, for some reason, every time they have somebody come on and talk about race, something about race, it's always a black guy, these Democrats. It's never a white man. That seems very racist to me, very lacking in diversity. They should have their spokespeople and the people that are going to be their mouthpieces be of all different races and creeds and colors, not just black men, to show they're not racist, which, by the way, they are. We all know the Democrats are the most racist party on earth. That's why they're always focused on race and conflating race and political ideologies, which are in no way connected. At least they should not be. You're not born a Democrat just because you're black.
So, if you could kind of imagine a scenario in which, maybe you can't, but let me throw this out there were, I don't know, 13 Filipino lawmakers voting on a piece of legislation. You had a sitting member of Congress go on television and say, you know what, Filipinos doing this. That's appalling. I don't think she'd get very far, would she? I don't know, but that's a...
He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Hypothetical, but the reality...
That's a hypothetical. No, it's not a hypothetical, you idiot. Because you just had 13 white people. The example he made, you moron, wasn't about specifically Filipinos. He's talking about a group that's seen as a minority group that is a Oriental group. Oh, that's such an evil word. Yeah, right. Give me a break. An Oriental group, Asian group. So, you know, it's perfectly acceptable to use them in some kind of comparison to make a point that we're not talking about minorities or majorities here, oppressed and oppressor. We're talking about a specific group being singled out for their race. Is that good or bad? And he just says, oh, that's a hypothetical. It's not a hypothetical, you idiot. That's exactly what you're doing.
The matter is that the Republican Party at its highest ranks of leadership has a diversity problem.
No, you moron, you. You're conflating political diversity, diversity of thought, and race. They're in no way connected except in your tiny little mind where you've polarized people along race lines and told them exactly what they should believe as a black person, exactly what they should believe as a white person, exactly what they should believe as a trans person, exactly what they should believe as a Chinese person. Idiot.
And lack of diversity, be it ideological diversity, gender diversity, or racial diversity, makes us all poorer because...
The left doesn't give a shit about diversity of thought, okay? This guy is just trying to silence the recent critics who have been more and more vocal about the very obvious lack of diversity of thought, diversity of ideas on the left. The truth of the matter is there's no diversity. And by the way, he's disproving his own argument because he's conflating the fact that they're all white with some belief that it coincides with their thought, with what they think. He's giving himself away right here when he says there's a problem with diversity. If it was only about their race, he would just say they have a problem with diversity of race. But he's conflating a diversity of ideas, diversity of thought, diversity of political opinion with race. How do you know what their political thoughts and opinions are? How do you know what their ideas are? You know nothing except their race. But you are talking about race and thought and political ideas, and you're basing your belief that they lack diversity in those areas simply on the fact that they're all white people. You're a racist scumbag, you Don Lemon look-alike moron.
You're not necessarily getting the diversity of perspective that one needs when attacking something as big as infrastructure, tax reform, or healthcare. These are big challenges.
Pardon me when I laugh. These are from the Democratic Party, which just announced that anyone who disagrees with them on Roe v. Wade can't be a member of the party.
They're talking about lacking diversity of thought and opinion and everything, based solely on race, and yet here they are, all different diversities of race and color and sex, and they all have the same political opinion. So he just destroyed his own thesis about how race equals same political opinion. All white guys, all the same point of view. When, honestly, they are very likely people with very different and diverse points of view. But you don't know that. So he automatically makes this assumption. They're all racist. They're all the same political ideology. And here he is disproving his thesis. Basically, opinion of thought, opinion of politics, political views have nothing to do with race, gender, sexual orientation. If it did, everybody in the Democratic Party would have wildly different points of view. And they don't. They all walk the same line. This guy's a moron.
You're telling me that diversity is lacking. But
That's not exactly true.
look, we can have different views on things. We choose to have the views that we have. We don't choose to be the color that we are.
We don't.
It's something that happens to us. And so the agreement we've had for a long time, and it's a good agreement, is that we're not going to judge people on things they can't control. Accidents of birth, including race. So what does this have to do with the health care bill?
The thing that has to do with the health care bill is that you don't choose to be white. I didn't choose to be African American, but you do choose who your party leadership is.
That's right, you moron. And did you ever stop to think that maybe, just maybe, these people were chosen by Trump because he likes their ideas and opinions? Could it also be that a large majority of black people in politics have the same opinion as you, believing in identity politics and grouping the people together based on their race or some kind of other arbitrary identification and not ideas, and that he values ideas more? Couldn't be just a coincidence. I mean, isn't the world supposed to be a meritocracy, you moron? So you're basically saying that, well, they're all white, that equals racist. No, it couldn't just be that they all have ideas that he values and that actually work with this new bill. It couldn't be that these people helped create this new bill and that they have the kind of mindset and values that he values. Not meaning that they're all of, in a sense, the same ideology, just that they're the best people for the job. It can't be possible that 30, 40 people get chosen to do a job and they all happen to be white because it turned out, oh my God, white people turned out to be the best people for this specific job. Oh, geez Louise, there wasn't a few black guys he could have found that were just as qualified. Give me a break.
And writ large, the Republican Party has chosen to have 13 white men in the room when creating a system that will control 1/5 to 1/6 of our nation's economy.
Okay, Don Lemon, moron. Listen and listen good. The 13 white men were the best qualified for the job. Black people are like 17% of the population, okay? And there wasn't a black person that he thought was qualified for the job. That's it. It had nothing to do with race. He just didn't find somebody that was qualified who happened to be black. He's not basing his criteria for doing the job on skin color like you dummies. He's basing it on, are they qualified or not?
That is a tangible choice made by the Republican Party.
Yes, he didn't choose people based on their race. He chose people based on their merit. Damn him to hell.
Tangible choice made by the Trump administration to have a room full of white men deciding on women's health.
Oh, wait a second now. Now, come on now. Deciding on women's health. What does their gender have to do with making decisions about women's health? Are you saying that women are biased sexually and that they will make decisions that are more geared toward women and won't care about men? You're saying that men don't care about, what you're really saying is women don't care about men's health equally and that men don't care about women's health equally. This guy, he's associating political ideologies and a person's mindset and what kind of decisions they're going to make based on their gender and their race. He is a racist. He's a racist.
A room full of white men decided Obamacare. It was the majority white Democratic caucus that passed that bill.
Don Lemming here is ignoring that fact. Didn't want to talk about Obama, the second coming.
It was.
Well,
The Democratic caucus is majority white.
It is, but
Hold on. Why is that? And I'm not being... It's not about what color I am or what you are. It's about the principle that you ought to judge people for what they do and say, the decisions they make, rather than by the color of their skin. Almost by the content of their character, you could say.
You could say.
Why is it bad that these people are a specific color? Does that color make it hard for you to make wise decisions?
No, it doesn't, but it represents a lack of diversity of perspective. And
No, it doesn't, you idiot! If that was the case, then your Democratic Party wouldn't be walking the same line, adhering to the exact same principles as everybody else in your party, and making it almost a sin, a real sin, to divert from that party line. Oh, if you're against Planned Parenthood, if you're against this, you're against that, you're not a Democrat. I mean, really? That's diversity of thought? That's diversity of opinion? Come on, man. You're disproving your own argument.
that lack of diversity of perspective, it's hard to think that
People's race doesn't affect their perspective the way you're talking about. You idiot. You don't have... being white doesn't mean you lack perspective. What a moron.
they're making the best policy for our entire country. You know, I live in Washington, D.C. We can't walk 6 blocks without seeing a variety of rainbows of shades of all different types of folks. And that is a microcosm of our country and where it's going.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And the Republican Party has not recognized that when creating policy.
But that's not really what's going on. I mean, I lived in D.C. as a kid, and it was a majority black city.
Sure.
And the city government was majority African American. Do you think they were making less good decisions because they were almost all one color?
I don't know, but I do know that.
Of course you know, you idiot. It's the exact same argument you just made, only replacing it with black people, you fool. Your argument is that a predominance of one specific race, meaning skin color of these people, is bad. So you just made... Tucker just made the exact same argument you made. But you're like, oh, I don't know about that. You do, you just said so. You just said that a predominance of, oh, well, no, that's not what I meant. What I really meant, but I can't say because I don't want it to be too blatantly obvious that I'm a racist scumbag, douchebag, is that it's a predominance of white people that's bad. It's the white people that's bad. The white hate is such a big buzzword. We can use that to polarize people. But I can't agree with him because it'll be too blatantly obvious that I'm a racist, fascist douchebag.
Oh, but wait a second. I thought you said that's always bad.
I don't know. I didn't study D.C. politics from the Marion Barry.
If Congress were 90% black,
What I
would they be making bad decisions?
What I do know is that the policies represented the greater diversity that we've seen in our country. The Republican Party, if you look at the representatives at the leadership of their party, and listen, I'm friends with Will Hurd, I have great faith in Mia Love and what they contribute to the Republican Party, but they are not right now at the top-ranking decision makers of leadership.
So what? So what? Who cares? What does that matter? All that matters is that the people with the right ideas are at the top rank. Not some kind of virtue signaling to say, hey, look, I put a woman up here. Isn't that great? Meanwhile, she does a shitty job. Or maybe she does a good job. But if she gets picked, I would hope she gets picked based on her skills and not based on her sex.
But you're not allowing for the possibility that people are individuals and they reach their own conclusions, not necessarily in reference to the group, whatever group you think they belong to, but because they're each one created by God to make his own choices.
This is not individually about race. This is about a...
Of course it is. That's all you're talking about. This guy is so disingenuous and dishonest. He is contradicting himself left and right. Everything you said before was in objection to their race. They're all white guys. They're all white guys. That's so evil because white guys, we all know white guys are evil and they're greedy guys. They inherited all their money and they're just greedy scum and, they only care about themselves and the white supremacy. They want to be supreme in our society. It's all about them. What an idiot. He contradicts himself constantly, and he doesn't see it. Don Lemon. Doesn't he look like Don Lemon? I think so. Talks like him, too.
Lack of ideological diversity.
Again, with the ideological diversity. Dude, you don't know anything about their ideologies. You've just judged them based on their color. You're saying, white? equals specific ideology. So there can't be any diversity of ideology because they're all white. He doesn't take into account. This guy is a leftist. He's a Marxist through and through. Nothing's going to get through his thick skull.
Lack of diversity of perspective, and it's a lack of diversity of experience.
Those are all real arguments. The race part is grotesque, I would say.
It's not. Race is a part of diversity. Ideological diversity, gender diversity, diversity of perspective, and
No, it's not. No, it's not, you idiot. You moron, you. Tell that to Colin Powell's son. Colin Powell's son is more privileged than most white people, you know? Being black or being white has nothing to do with your ideological diversity, you moron. Each individual has different life experiences, okay? If you're trying to say that more black people grow up poor than white people so they have a different perspective, maybe, maybe not. But you are grouping people together and assigning specific ideologies that you qualify as belonging to that specific group. And who the hell are you to decide, oh, this ideology and political viewpoint, that belongs to black people. That's only a black person ideology, and this one's a white person ideology. He's a racist. And like all racists, he's lacking in self-awareness, and he doesn't see it.
diversity of experience. And you have to take that diversity of experience into account.
The diversity of experience gets... You don't know the experience of these white people. You're making assumptions based on their race, you idiot. That's racism. That's like if I say all Jews are greedy. All Jews are money-loving scum, and they should all be eradicated. The Jewish person loves money. They love money too much. Money is God, and you know they all love money, and that's their perspective. That's the exact same thing. That's what you're saying, you idiot.
We're making policy as important as healthcare.
Okay, so I guess what concerns me here is we're opening up a can of worms. And I get part of what you're saying, because I do think a diversity of perspective and background and opinion is really important. I believe that.
Yes, but you see, Tucker understands that that's in no way connected to your race. It's a happenstance of birth. And just because black people might have a tendency to live in poverty more, that's not necessarily true. It doesn't have anything to do with being black. And consequently, there's plenty of white people living in poverty, plenty of every people living in poverty, and white people are in no way privileged in this country. He's looking back to Jim Crow days about 50, 60 years ago, where even the poorest people were considered better than black people. That's not the case anymore, moron. And we don't have that kind of environment anymore where an entire racial group is going to be impoverished, and then another racial group is going to be somehow above them, even if they are impoverished. It doesn't work that way anymore, man.
My staff, the companies I've run that way. But I also think that if you're creating a rhetorical dynamic where it's okay to attack people because of their skin color, which is exactly what Debbie Dingell was doing, it's exactly what Andrew Mitchell was doing.
She said white.
Then that's good.
And that's a bad statement.
What the hell?
That is a statement that someone of her stature and someone who's been in the game as long as she has, a congresswoman, should know better than that. How about?
Right, she should be smart enough to keep her racist thoughts that are too blatant to herself, and just use these buzzwords that are politically acceptable.
I would not use the phrase white wear, but I disagree with the premise that these people are being attacked because of their skin color.
That's all you're doing! Oh no, it's the race, not their skin color, it's the race. That's the same goddamn thing. You're conflating that's what you're doing. Oh, I'm not saying they're bad because they're white or they don't have political diversity of thought because they're white. It's just because they're white. What?
Republican Party and the policy that emanates therefrom is being attacked because it per se doesn't include substantial diversity that looks like the country.
Why isn't he arguing about the bill? Do you notice that all this... That's race then, you idiot. You're saying it's not about white. It's not about them being white. That's exactly what it's about. White people are a race. You classify them as a race. You talk about them all the time as a race, as a single group, as a race. But now it's not about race because you don't want to be seen as what you are. You're a racist. You're a scumbag. We should put a little ink stain mustache under your nose and say, Heil Hitler, because that's exactly what you are. You're a Nazi scumbag.
Okay, so I'm just saying, and I'm sure this has occurred to you, but if you have a political conversation where one group is starting to attack another group on the basis of its race, that you could wind up with a country where all groups start attacking other groups on the basis of theirs.
That's the point. That's the whole goal of cultural Marxism. You know, that's it. Set up an oppressor, set up the oppressed, fight, break out, destabilize the culture. Boom, communism creeps in, and it already has. That's what they want.
End up with a really divided, dangerously so, country.
That's a nasty slope to go down, but I think we disagree on the premise that people are being attacked on the basis of race.
What is this guy smoking? That's exactly what you're doing, because you're associating specific ideologies and ways of thinking with them being white. You couldn't do that if it wasn't about race, you idiot. Oh, well, what are you attacking? I'm attacking their lack of diversity of thought and opinion. But you don't know any of these people. Yeah, but they're all white. Well, that's racist of you. Oh, I'm not attacking race. I'm attacking the diversity of opinion. What? Can this guy hear himself?
I think we're being attacked. Democrats are pointing out, rightfully so, the lack of racial diversity in the Republican Party.
He just said 5 seconds ago it's not about race. And now he just used the word race, and it's about racial diversity. So does the leftist double talk never end?
Decision-making structure writ large, right? And that's not wrong to point out.
Yeah, it is wrong to point out, you idiot. It's called racism, you fool.
This obvious question, if you had a jury that was 100% Samoan, would it be able to reach a just conclusion?
As an attorney, I would say that if my client was not Samoan, I would say that he probably or she probably didn't get a jury.
I don't want to live in a country like that. Now, Obama, the former president, comes out recently, I think today, and says racial relations have never been better. You know.
Obama's only saying that because he just left office, and he can't yet blame the current atmosphere on Trump. Give it a year or two, and he'll say they're horrible. Oh, race relations are the worst they've ever been. He'll say, oh, and of course implying that it's Trump's fault. And you can't say that they're horrible, which is true, and that he caused it. No, they have to be wonderful.
America. And I know that when you've been the president, you want to think you left the country a better place than you found it.
Sure.
But that's just a flat-out lie. And why should we have, I mean, there's no measure by which that's true. And if we're having this conversation now, it suggests that it's not only not true, it's ridiculous.
Well, the premise here, and it seems like the premise for the entire discussion we're having, is that white America is under attack. And
this guy likes to use the word premise a lot, but he doesn't know how to use it. He's a moron. And yes, white America is under attack. So you spent the whole segment attacking white people, especially white men, you feminist, communist, pinko you, and then you turn it around saying, oh, but that's not what I'm doing, and white America is not under attack. Because he knows there's sheeple out there who'll just hear what he says, and he thinks that he can program them like a computer, and they'll just suck in every word he says, and that'll be their new reality. Oh, the white people are not under attack. He's right. White people are not under attack. You say it enough, speak a lie enough, people will believe it.
That's what I find to be fundamentally not true.
But I'm not making the case that white America is under attack.
You should, Tucker, because they are.
Making the case that the society that you want to live in, all of us should be trying to live in, is one in which people are judged by what they do, by the choices that they make. Not judged.
He's saying absolutely. They should absolutely be judged by. But that contradicts his entire actual premise, which underpins his whole argument, which is that ideologies, be them political or perspectives on life, are based on race. He's made that clear through every assessment he has made of the situation. And then he said, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not attacking race. And then he says it's about racial diversity. That's about race, pinhead.
By immutable characteristics over which they have no control, such as their race or their height, or their eye color for that matter. And that Democratic leaders, liberal leaders, are all of a sudden forgetting that lesson and pushing this race stuff on the country.
Race is immutable. It is an immutable characteristic. You're absolutely right. What we do have control over is how many people we include when making policy, and we're making real decisions that are going to affect all of us, not just white males.
Oh, yes. We have the ability to control who we choose, yeah. And he chose the people who are most qualified because he's a smart businessman. He doesn't hire morons. just because they're Latino. Oh, you're the right skin color. Oh my God, I just lost $20 million on that deal because of you, you idiot. Why did I hire you? Ah, you hired me because I am Latino. Oh, shit, that's a bad way to hire people. Get the fuck out.
The Republican Party, I have dear Republican friends across the board, but writ large in concerning the leadership who's in charge of making policy that emanates from not only the federal government, but in the states, they have failed at the concept of including everyone at the table.
Yeah, because not everyone is qualified. You meathead, you.
Would you acknowledge that people of the same color can have dramatically different views while remaining authentic?
Absolutely. You just said no, they can't. You said that it's a travesty. All these 13 white men. We need different perspectives of race and viewpoints that are different, which implies that they don't have those differing viewpoints because they're all white. Now you're saying, oh yeah, they can have different viewpoints if they're the same race. Well, so who cares that it was 13 white guys? Because now you're admitting they could all have vastly different viewpoints, and so there could be a great deal of diversity there. This guy, he's all over the place.
You look at Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who is attacked for daring to have views that are different from the majority of people who look like him. That's awful.
I don't think he's attacked for daring to have views that are different from African Americans. You look at Senator Tim Scott, and he has the wide and broad respect of the African American community, and he is a staunchly conservative Republican. I've known him from years when he was in Columbia in the state legislature. So I think that Clarence Thomas is a very special case with the vitriol with which he's chosen to carry out a lot of his policies. And he's a hard man to understand.
Yeah, I think he's gotten most of the vitriol. And finally, I would ask you this. When you're a public servant, do you think that you have a duty to represent your fellow citizens first, second, and third? Or do you think you have a duty to represent people who look like you, too?
I think that you have a duty to represent your fellow citizens, which is the problem.
Thank you.
Which is the problem with the Republican Party not including everyone.
I love this line of reasoning. So he says it's his job to represent his constituents, but he has only one point of view. He doesn't really represent everyone. He just represents those that have his point of view. And then he says it's bad that the Democratic Party doesn't represent everyone that they represent by having other people in the room that are, look like all their constituents. This is the mistake they make, okay? You can have a mix of every single type of human being on the earth in that room signing that bill, and they could do a horrible job. It's about picking the people who do the job best. And by the way, do we forget that white people are still the majority in this country? I mean, so what's wrong with all of the people on that panel being white people? He chose the people that were best qualified. I'm sorry. If he chose white people, it was because they happened to be the people that were best qualified. The fact that they're white is happenstance and nothing more. And for you to say that white people, because they're white, can't represent the values and concerns of their constituents means that you as a black man, you can't represent the concerns of your constituents either. And if you're now saying, yes, I represent all my people, well, then if you can do it as a black man when you've got white people as your constituents and Asian people, then so can those white guys. You idiot.
Because black folks are their fellow citizens too. Gay and lesbian folks are their fellow citizens.
I'm not here to defend the Republican Party, which I think is really damaged and silly in a lot of ways. But I got to be completely honest, it's a little much, considering the Democratic Party has officially exclusionary policies based on race for how it chooses delegates, for how it allocates power, for how it sends money, and certainly in the presidential nominating contest, you can't imagine that that's not a massive factor in who gets chosen. So
at the end of the day, the leadership is chosen by a popular and proper vote. However, the Democratic Party has...
Popular vote. Democracy, one of the worst forms of government and one of the worst ways to choose leaders. Yeah, I'm not surprised that's how you choose.
chosen to put in institutional measures to rectify historical inadequacies and historical mistreatment. So, does that mean that it's based upon race? To some degree, yes. But ultimately, the Democratic Party has said that we want diverse representation, and we'll take measures to foster that.
Right. Which means you'll continue to be racist because you value diversity of identity over diversity of opinions, which is highlighted by the fact that you believe that 13 white men cannot represent the concerns of all Americans because they're too white, they're too much privilege.
Good man. Thanks, Tucker.
Well, that was no surprise to me. The things I raised, some of them Tucker did not, and I wish he would have because I thought they were pretty obvious. And I think he took a little easy on this guy who was constantly contradicting himself and doing some very impressive mental gymnastics and hopping around issue to issue, constantly changing his viewpoint. I just wish Tucker would have been a little harder on the guy. So there's a perfect example of the typical Democrat. Leftist, Marxist, pinko, communist, pinhead. I am the MGTOW philosopher, and I wish you a good day.